Hello there, Shane. Thanks again for joining us on the Spider Success podcast. I'll allow you to take the opportunity to go ahead and explain who you are, introduce yourself and your position here at the university and the other titles and positions you hold elsewhere.
Well, thank you, RD. It's very nice to be here. Always nice to be on campus, and particularly this part of campus. It's nice to see you helping out with everything here and driving the team forward. I think they're lucky to have you. It's great to be here, and I have a position in the Robbins School as a entrepreneur in residence, and also teach a course for seniors at the university, where the seniors, the students in the course, launch a real food or beverage company.
Okay.
So after joining as an entrepreneur in residence, when we sold my old company, Health Warrior, to PepsiCo at the end of 2018, one thing that I thought would be fun was for the business school to have a course where the students actually launch a business. It just seemed like it made a lot of sense. Coming from someone who didn't go to business school and didn't know much about it until I started one, it was something I wish I had the experience of. And food and beverage, consumer is kind of the place I play in now. But I didn't start out that way after college. I was a college athlete a long time ago in a galaxy far away, a time known as the late 1990s. Things have changed a little bit since then.
Right. Yeah. As they say, as much as they change, they also stay the same. So a lot of that information that, like you said, you figured out is very pertinent in this current world of business. So, and right now, aside from your position at the university, what other businesses, ventures, and things that you got going on that you'd like to share?
Yeah, no, I got a bunch of stuff going on, and unfortunately, the minority of my time is spent at the university, but I think that's kind of the idea for hopefully the entrepreneurs and residents, is to be out there in the world, shaking things up and be able to bring the university into it one way or another and bring those experiences back. But I've got let's see, when will this air? We do have one big thing going on, but I'm not sure if I'm allowed to talk about it quite yet.
You got a couple weeks.
Okay. Well, we bought an artesian. So I, just by way of background, I went to Colgate, grew up in Williamsburg down here in Virginia, went to Colgate University in New York. I got recruited for swimming 30 pounds ago.
Yeah.
And, swimming is a very thankless sport. You're underwater 4 hours a day and you're just tired and hungry all the time. And, I spent more time watching the ice hockey team than paying attention to my own swimming. But after that, I went to law school in England at Oxford, which was a really awesome experience. To play rugby over there. If anyone's thinking about law school, I tell all my students, Oxford and Cambridge are licensed by the American Bar Association. They cost about a third of what a U.S. law school would be. And it's 2 years instead of 3. So it's a great deal. But anyways, Richmond's law school is great too, of course.
Yeah.
But so I did that. And then I moved to Southern California and practiced law in Santa Barbara for about 7 years. Mainly lived on the beach, surfed. It was very, very comfortable lifestyle, but I got bored. I was doing plaintiff's law, civil rights law, and it was fine. It was just suing people. And it was a very comfortable lifestyle. So I quit that job and joined the Obama campaign as a lawyer in 2008, worked for them all the way through the general election in Virginia, and then ended up as an attorney for then Governor Tim Kaine. So I spent 3 years in the counselor's office working for Governor Kaine, which was the best lawyer job, just awesome. But I was pretty young. I was still in my late 20s at that point, and I didn't want to be a real lawyer. So I knew I had to figure out something else to do at the end of Governor Kaine's term. And I had started a health food company called Health Warrior on the side, really as a hobby, with my college roommates who were also Division I athletes in the late 90s. So we had an idea for a nutrition company. We launched it nationally with Whole Foods in 2012. And we were lucky that it was one of the fastest growing food companies in the country for about 4 years. Wow. And then we sold it to PepsiCo at the end of 2018. And it was fun. It's a consumer packaged goods company, right? Health Warrior, we made nutrition bars and protein powders and plant-based superfood breakfast products. But really, it was a team mentality. We were a very mission-driven, athletically bent brand. We had 5 a.m. workouts for everyone. There was a Wall Street Journal article about us making our CFO candidate do a terrible workout in Central Park as his job interview, which is probably not the correct thing to do anymore, but this was a little while ago, and you
Right,
kind of
right.
get that kind of stuff. And we had a lot of professional athletes invest in the company. So Arian Foster was one of our biggest investors.
Nice.
Glover Quinn, Dwayne Brown, Allison Felix, just this really awesome crew that were attracted to the mission and the brand and the team mentality. So, when I think about your student athletes and the role of entrepreneurship, the role of consumer brands, there's one I always, tell people, if you want to, people have already written down every great experience in human history. And if you want to read about starting a company, one of the best books is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight.
Oh, yeah.
And it's funny, like I read that in a night. I think I cried twice just because the experiences he went through, and he's very honest. He pulls no punches. Is, it's what you go through starting a company. It's really hard, but it's funny when you look at Nike, sort of the paradigmatic athletic company. It does have that team sensibility and learning how to work with people, not as a family. It's really dangerous if a company becomes a family usually,
Right.
because we all know how families can be, number one. I know, my family, I know your family's great. My family's crazy.
Thanks.
But you have to perform, right? And that's the part where it's nice to think more about your company as being a team,
yes,
than a family. And for what you're doing with the athletes at Richmond, I just think it's a really spectacular training for getting out there. Mm-hmm. And sure, big companies are like that too, but small companies are really like that because you're growing so fast. It's changing so much. You really have to have that adaptability that I think college athletics, the discipline, both discipline and creativity. Right. And it's a good underpinning for that. Yeah. So anyways, that's where I came from. And that's what I'm doing. We bought a water source recently, and we just partnered with the fastest growing beverage brand in history that we're going to start artesian water. So think like Fiji or Evian quality water, but we're going to be canning it for them in the mountains of Virginia. Okay. So that's been a big project for me. Yeah. A lot of jobs. It's going to be really exciting. I can't tell you exactly who the brand is quite yet, but you can probably guess. Absolutely. And beyond that, I sit on a bunch of food company boards, which is really fun. So I get to help all the entrepreneurs with the same problems we experience, because that's all you do when you start a company is you solve problems and, you grow. You tell stories, you solve problems, and you grow. I do a lot of that. I was on the cannabis board for the Commonwealth of Virginia until recently. My term just ended on that, but that was really interesting space to learn about, but still pretty early in the industry.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I find you kind of said something interesting, and I talk to student athletes about it all the time, is being able to learn from other people's experience. You don't have to go through all the trials and tribulations if somebody else has gone through it, and you're able to just have conversations about, lessons learned, pitfalls, successes, and things of that sort. So I would ask, like, for you, going through starting your own company, being a CEO and then selling that company, what kind of lessons would you say are pertinent that you learned that you could share with us for the athletes paying attention here?
Yeah, I mean, there's lessons you learn about people and running companies and life, and I've got a whole list of those we could talk through. But I think the point you made at the beginning of the question, a really good one, is people have done it before. And for us, my co-founders are Dan and Nick, and we, I was a constitutional attorney. They worked at a hedge fund on Wall Street, and we started a snack company. Right. And we were a little bit cocky. We, thought we'd had these big jobs. We'd been working for 10 years. We didn't know anything. We were idiots, babes in the woods. Like we always joke, we had what they call a CPG, consumer packaged goods company, for like a year before we knew what CPG meant. But we went and found people. We found a friend of ours named Kelly Flatley. She was a founder of Bare Naked Granola, UVA graduate. Yeah. And a guy named Mark Rampolla, who founded Zico Coconut Water. We had personal connections to both of them. And we were like, you got to tell us what to do. We made this thing. Whole Foods wants it. We have no idea what we're doing. Like, help. And they did, right? They gave us the rules, they told us about the industry. They told us how expensive it was. Right. They told us that most food and beverage brands go bankrupt within 24 months after they get into Walmart or Target. all these things that we always joke, if we had known everything we know now, we probably wouldn't have done it. But
Yeah.
the joke is you have to be dumb enough to start it and smart enough to finish it. But that's the first piece, go find great people, even if you have to pay them, and just learn from them, because you could be the smartest person in the world, like in the food business, for instance, which is the oldest industry in the world,
Right.
and not be able to like just figure it out on your own. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense intuitively. So I think that being willingness to really, have 2 ears, 1 mouth, and just listen is a big lesson. And then for me, there's a lot of startups are different, right? Sometimes when you have a big company like Pepsi, who bought our company, your job's just to keep growing, but it's also not to break something that someone else made big 50 years ago, right? And be very cautious and have a system for that. For a startup, you have to grow, you have to escape gravity, but also not run out of money. And
you don't want to burn too hot.
Yeah, we talked about the Bushido code a lot, which was the Japanese samurai code for beginning with death always in mind first. Yeah. So, don't go out of business being your first rule. But beyond that, it's all about the people and the team you build. It makes all the difference in the world. So, I think that's a good reason why college athletics are a great proving ground, and why we hired out of it pretty aggressively.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question. As a CEO, business owner, you've named a bunch of high-profile athletes, and you're a student athlete yourself. What are some of the attributes you find student athletes have that make them better candidates in your mind for roles with the companies that you run?
Yeah, I mean, the number one thing I would say is obviously you have discipline. If you're able to make it into and through a program like this, you're going to show up to work on time. You're going to know how to set your alarm clock. You're going to, not goof off too late the night before, and be serious. You've been passionate about something in your life, right? Like hopefully most of the students that work with you aren't here just because they feel like they need to do it or for the scholarship, but because they truly love the sport.
Yeah.
And I think those are kind of the two things. And it's a balancing act, right? Because you need creativity on one hand, but you also really need the discipline. And I can't, it's actually hard to think of, other than someone who has just been starting stuff on their own their whole life. Mm-hmm. Many folks coming out of college these days who have demonstrated products where they built something or been a part of something that's analogous. I really don't think you get that in the case study method at, a business school where you just kind of have a group and you work together. Yeah. Like you're not actually bringing it out on the field like a college athlete is. Right. You're not having people, that pressure put on you, which can be really hard when you're young, right? I mean, it didn't matter. There wasn't a ton of pressure for the Colgate swim team in 1998. But, for a lot of your athletes, there is a tremendous amount of pressure. And I think that, pressure makes diamonds. And for us, that was big. We had Terrell Turner, who was the captain of the Oregon Ducks football team the year before he worked for us, was our road warrior in LA. Yeah. And you could tell him to do anything. He'd run through a wall for you. And it was just really great. But they also got to learn about, you have to start to make your own decisions. Your right. Coach is not going to be prescriptive to you. So I think that was something, particularly with our younger employees who were just out of college, I would say the majority of whom were an athlete of some sort or another, that to begin to have that independent mindset. And we had people all over the country. So we really had to be like, you're running your own little business here. Go out there. And we had an acronym called FIO. That was one of the rules at the company. It means figure it out. No one's going to tell you what to do. You got to figure it out.
You got to hold up your end of the team, yeah. Everybody has a specific job. You have to produce so that the team can move forward and be successful.
That's exactly right. And if you have a good company, everyone that works for you knows what the mission is, right. Knows exactly what their job is, and how, if they do a good job, they'll be rewarded for it. And it's contributing to the mission. Absolutely. It sounds so simple, but man, it's hard, like on a day-to-day and year-to-year basis to get that right.
And that's one of the things we also talk to our student athletes about, is that a lot of the things that they do on a daily basis is so ingrained that they don't recognize how special it is. It's you wake up every morning at 6 a.m., go to the lift, go to practice, go to class, have your games on the weekends. And they've been doing it from such an early age that it's normal, and they don't recognize how special it actually is. It's extremely special because not everybody on campus is doing this.
Totally. And do you think this was something so when I went to law school, I didn't swim. I didn't have practice for 4 hours a day. I wasn't tired all the time. I played rugby and, we had practice an hour a day, but it was just so different. And I almost didn't know what to do with myself with all the extra time and not having that there. Do you ever find that with the athletes that once they graduate, they're like, wait a minute, where am I supposed to show up and when, and what's my day going to be like with all this free time and self-determination?
Yes, to a certain extent. And that's kind of one of our goals prior to graduation, to help with that transition, to talk about, you're no longer going to have all of these things. So we have to make sure we are filling that space with the right things, because it's very easy to fall off track and develop unhealthy habits. Let's talk about those things before you're in the situation. You don't want to try and fix the problem after it's become a huge problem. One of the things I like to say is I like to put out brush fires, not forest fires.
It's a good line. I might
take it. It's yours. But let's have a conversation so that when you do end up in the real world, and now you have all of this extra free time, what can you do with that time? Have a set workout, have, a hobby of some sort, whatever it is. And now we're not going to the negative side of things that can take up your time.
Yeah. That's great. That's great.
Yeah. So Shane, you've answered all the questions that I have, man. This is
all right.
Exquisite and just packed full of information for the student athletes to kind of absorb and digest. Are there any final last things that you want to impart with us or share?
I would just say if any of the athletes are interested in the space, in working for consumer brands, be it apparel, athletics, food, beverage, shoot me a note. Would love to help people get jobs. And there's a lot of them. These companies hire a lot of people, and they're fun. You're out there in the world in the mix, and in my opinion, it's more fun than pushing money around on Wall Street. So I'm always trying to talk people out of that and law school. So have them give me a call.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you doing this. This is great. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Spiders.
All right. Go Spiders. You're the man, RD. I'll see you soon.
See you.